Hello friends and welcome to my YouTube channel Sing Ventures. A very happy new year to all of you. Hopefully we will have a much better year than 2020. Today's topic which I am going to discuss is how to call a third-party API in SPFx. This is part of the Let's Learn a Microsoft 365 topic vlog series, and this is the 10th video. I have done a couple of more videos on SPFx. If you have not seen them before, I suggest you to go to my channel, subscribe it, and also watch the couple of videos. In those videos, I have discussed how to call Microsoft Graph and also build how to also call Microsoft Graph Toolkit with React and other things. In this, we are going to call a third-party API which is outside of Microsoft domain. Um, so what I am calling is the third-party API which displays jokes, actually Chuck Norris jokes. So it will be quite good to see that. So let's look into the app first, and then I will talk about some prerequisites. So this is the app I have created. So I have not worked on the UI part a lot, but what it does, it's very simple that it displays a Chuck Norris joke every time I refresh the page. So if you add this web part in your SharePoint page, and if anybody loads the page every time, it will load a new joke. So you can see Chuck Norris doesn't look both ways before he crosses the street. He just roundhouses any cars that get too close. So basically, it's a joke every time a page refresh, and it is calling a API which has been developed. A guy, you will find the reference of that API in my description of the video, and also on the source code which I'll be hosting in the GitHub. So that is a very simple um, uh, web part, but it demonstrates how to call a third-party API which is not part of the Microsoft domain, and how to display the information in the web part. Before I proceed further, if you're doing the development for the first time, I will just have a brief about the prerequisites. So you need a Microsoft 365 developer account, a Visual Studio Code, or any other IDE. In this case, I'm using Visual Studio Code, which is a great IDE, I would say. You need to have Node.js installed, Git installation. You can also go through the development setup, how to do to this URL, how to do the setup of your SPFX development. And we will be using Yeoman generator to do the work. So what we need to do is pretty simple. We just ran yo Microsoft @SharePoint, and we will do the rest of the steps. So I will just show you in this. So first we should create a folder. And this will call the Yeoman generator, which is part of the SPFX development setup, which you can read about. But I just want to show what are the options we need to select here. So what is your solution name? So I'll go with the default. We should select SharePoint Online Latest. Use the current folder. And I'll say yes to this. Also yes to this. Web part. What is the web part name? Third party API call. Description, I will leave it as is. And the most important thing is that we are going to use the React framework. Don't get afraid if you haven't used React before. The parts which I have used of React are pretty simple. So you will get an understanding of that. So use React and then create. So it will create the framework of your web part. I have already done this creation before, so I will not wait for this to finish because it takes good amount of time, at least 15-20 minutes. Okay. So let's go back to once the framework is created, we will have a folder like this created. In this case, the folder name is SPFX third party API, and all the framework is created. You can see. So what we are interested is in the source folder, SRC, and here we are going to go. I will do a good code overview right now for you to explain what are the things which you need to consider. So the first thing, we will go to this interface, and generally here you will have the description field, which is the default in SPFx app. We will replace with another property called joke text, which is the text of the joke, and we will have this any. You can have string and other things. I have chosen any so that it can be anything in the future, if I want to do some changes. But in this case, in this case, my response will be only text. If you are going to have some custom CSS things, you need to put this in this file. So you can have your image or other types of CSS descriptions here stored, and you will refer to it later. But in my case, it is just a text, so I'm not going to do that. In the txx file, this is where you will create your React element, and this has a render method which will be used to render the HTML which you see in the web part. It is different from the no JavaScript framework. In the no JavaScript framework, everything about the HTML is written in the main web part file, but in this case we are going to split it. So we are using this class, and we are extending the React component, and in the render method we are just doing the simple HTML. Here I'm just saying a demo by Sing Ventures, space the title. The most important part is this line, and here you can see I have written Chuck Norris jokes, and this dot props dot joke text, and this is the same parameter which was defined in the interface. So I'm saying that you display the text you get from the response of the API call, and then display it. Okay, so that is what I'm trying to do. Let's go back. Now let's go to the main file, that is our SPFx.ts file, webpart.ts file. In this file, we have to do certain changes. The first one is that we have to import the HTTP client. Now, we are talking about calling third-party APIs. The third-party API calls can be of different things. Like we can call Active Directory authenticated calls, but this is an anonymous call, so we are not getting authenticated in any manner. So this is a very simple example where I will just call API which is open to everybody, and it doesn't need any authentication, and it gives us a text or a JSON, and you can process it. You can imagine different scenarios. You can create an Azure function, which displays information from a database or others. In that case, you have to authenticate the Azure function. You can use the same user context you have with the user who is logged in, or some other authentication mechanism. Always remember, you have to use OAuth in these cases. But in this example, it is not like that, and it is very simple. We are using an open API, but we have to use this to make the HTTP calls for calling APIs. Then we have to create another method called getJoke, and in this method we are going to use the this.context.httpClient.get, and this is the method which is provided by Microsoft in the SPFx development, where you can pass on any API like this. So you can see this is the API which I call geekjokes.sameerkumar. So this is an API developed by a guy called Sameer Kumar, who has given this API to us, and it just gives us the response in the text format, and then I return that text response. So imagine here the response is coming in text, but it can be a JSON which you can process and display complex information on your web part. But the main thing we need to understand here is that we have to write a method which gets the response from the API, and then we have to process it. Then we have to replace the default render method which we have, and here we are saying that we are checking if it has been only rendered once. this dot get joke, so we are calling the method which we created before, and the response, because the response in this case is text, so I'm already setting this joke text with the text I'm getting directly. In case there is a JSON or other things, you have to do some processing to display the information. You can, in the JSON, you can imagine you can have multiple information coming up, and then you have to set it in the different interface properties, to display the information, right? So yeah, that was the code. Once that is done, you can just run gulp serve, which will display the information in the web part. So you can see here. So I have already run the gulp serve, and it will basically run it on the workbench here. And you have to add the web part. Like I can add another one here. And every time we refresh the page, it will call the API and display the information. So this is how you can display jokes on your web parts. So what we learn here is very simple, is that how we can call the third-party API like this. It can be any API which is open in this case, can respond to JSON or other different formats. And then we have to set those values, whatever we get in the joke text. It can be a collection or an array which you have to process here, and display the information. Um, Remember that in this TXX file, you have to you have to decide how you want to display the information. So this is where you can build your UI. And in the main web part file, we just need to set the properties, nothing more than that. Okay. So the moment we get the data, we can process it here, and display the information. And as I mentioned before, you can use this file to create your own CSS if you need to. And here is the parameters in the interface, which will be used to set the information which we are getting from the API. So hopefully you liked today's demo, and also the app and the understanding. If you have any questions, just comment it on my video or connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn. And please don't forget to subscribe my channel, Sing Ventures. So yeah, thank you for today. Thank you. Bye.